Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 7. And for today's video, I will once again be breaking down another interview, and this interview is from comicbook.com, in which they did an interview with showrunner Eric Wallace. There are some pretty interesting teases which Eric Wallace gives away. But there's one section within this interview which I am really worried about, and I really do need to touch upon because it is something that gets me worried. But overall, this interview is pretty damn interesting, so I thought of sharing you guys my thoughts in regards to this interview and what Eric Wallace has to say about The Flash Season 7 as well as The Flash Season 8 as well. But before I go over anything, however, you guys don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so starting off with the second question, because the first question isn't really that relevant, I've already touched upon that before, but the second question goes as followed. The death of the Speed Force was a big part of last season's last few episodes. How quickly is that going to be dealt with? Will it be a season-long thing? In which Eric Wallace replies, it is one of the themes and kind of issues that Barry has to deal with all of the season 7. I've got my speed back, but at what cost? That's kind of the question, right? And we'll see him struggle with that. We'll also see that a real positive side to that as he learns what it means to see speed in a different way, from a different point of view. So it is pretty interesting. It is directly tied into one of the season's big bads for the next two graphic novels. So I can say that without being a spoiler, it's right there in the premiere. We have to deal with it. So yeah, this is very interesting, and obviously we have seen Barry get his speed back through the artificial speed force from the season 7 premiere. And what Eric Wallace is saying over here with him struggling with the cost of him gaining his speed back, it's very interesting and I cannot wait to see where that goes. But probably the most interesting portion of this interview is how he says that this artificial speed force is basically connected to one of the season's big bads. He obviously doesn't say which big bad it is. It could either be the first half or the second half. Now, through the set photos we had absolutely zero sightings of Godspeed so far. So clearly, he is not the main villain after the Mirror Master storyline, but is actually the villain after episode 11, I'm guessing, so graphic novel number 4, because it was said that we will eventually see the real Godspeed and he will be having a much bigger role going into season 7, because after all, this is the real Godspeed. So this leads me to believe he will be the main villain after the villain we get during episode 4 to 11. So he will be the main villain from episode 12 to 18, if you want to say. And let's be honest, if they are going to link the artificial speed force with a main villain, it should be whatever storyline they have planned for Godspeed, in my opinion. But it could also be linked to the big bad for the first half of the season as well. We don't really know. I would say that it makes a lot more sense connecting it to a speedster villain with the speed force after all. So I think it would be a much better connection with Godspeed. But it could also be linked with the big bad of the first half. We don't know. Now, we have seen this individual, which I'm going to call the Nightmare Villain because I have no idea who he is, but we have seen him 3 times in set photos so far. Once during episode 5, and then we've seen him during episode 10, and then just today from Canada Graphs' recent blog, we've seen him in episode 11 as well, which is actually the final episode of graphic novel number 3. So he could potentially be the main villain for the first half of The Flash season 7. I'm not entirely sure, that is just a guess, because we really haven't seen a main antagonist so far, and as I said before, we've had 0 sightings of Godspeed, and he was teased to being a main part of season 7. So if we haven't seen Godspeed for the first half of season 7, we will be having someone else for the first half of season 7 after the Mirror Master arc, and then we should be having Godspeed after that. But the next question is, we have seen the Flash Museum, and we have seen that Barry becomes the most revered of his generation of heroes in a lot of ways. As you get into season 7, 8, 9, do you start to shift gears a little bit? Like, Barry needs a little less being mentored and a little bit more of growing into his reputation. And Eric Wallace replies, that's literally one of the themes of this season and going into season 8. So I can give you a preview. At some point, the hero, in order to graduate, needs to be more of a leader and less of a mentee. And you're going to see him doing a little bit more leading. I would say that's on purpose. That's just the natural growth of any superhero, and you'll even see him do some new things with his powers, discover a few of these things, and of course the good part of that is Barry Allen grows more comfortable and stronger in his abilities as the Flash. His villains then become all the more bigger and more deadly because now he can take on a different level foe. I love this. I really like what Eric Wallace said over here, and how Barry's character will begin to grow and eventually become that hero that he is destined to be. Now, with the new Speed Force, we obviously know that Barry will be getting new powers. As from episode 2, after all, we do know that he will be getting a new ability which we haven't seen before, that of speed thinking. And as Eric Wallace said, as Barry begins to become more powerful, he will be able to now take on more powerful villains than before going into season 8, which is very interesting, and I cannot wait to see this version of Barry develop. And we are getting this being incorporated into season 7 going into season 8, so we're going to see that startup of Barry becoming that hero that he's destined to be, and it will, come into play going into season 8 onwards, and I cannot wait to see that more powerful version of Barry, if you will. As Barry grows into the role he's foisted on Cisco last year, does that change Cisco's role a bit? It does a little bit. Cisco will have the greatest effect on his character as Barry starts to become even more of the character who we now know from later versions of the comics. But also, he had a storyline last year that was set into motion, that Cisco starts to become more of a leader himself. I always say and have two leaders. At some point, Cisco really has to come into his own. And one of the most important lessons Barry Allen can learn is to delegate. That's what a real team is. You'll see some of that this season, and that makes it very exciting for the rest of Team Flash. The other answer to your question, coming up in season 7, and we're really excited about, is you're going to see more episodes that really just focus on a particular character only, where the Flash is doing flashy stuff, but maybe next week it's a Cisco episode, or a Caitlin episode, or a Caitlin and Frost episode. Obviously they're in the same body. Or an Iris episode, or whatever. It's important for us to honor this great cast of people that we have. So you'll see more of them stepping into the spotlight, the same way Cisco stepped into the spotlight last season with Kiss Kiss Breach Breach, which we thought was a great episode. You'll see a little bit of that. And you might even see some of the new characters too, those being Brendan and Kayla playing Chester and Allegra. Okay, so firstly, breaking down the first part of what Eric Wallace said, and personally, I like what I'm hearing in regards to Cisco getting this, leader role. I think that would be fairly interesting to see. But the second part, I hate this. I absolutely hate the idea of giving characters their own centered episodes. If they have an episode centered to the story that they're going for, I'll love that. Like, if it's connected to the main story that they're going for, that would be perfect. I will have no issues with that whatsoever. Kind of like the premiere with Nash, like we got last week, where it's connected to the season-long storyline, but it's also a Nash episode. I would not mind that at all. But taking Kiss Kiss Breach Breach as an example gets me very worried, because firstly, that was an awful episode. It wasn't a good episode at all. And secondly, the show is called The Flash, so you make the story centered around him, not the semi-main characters, if you will. They shouldn't have a main storyline at all. Yes, if they have a sub-story within that episode, but has a main focus with Barry still, I would not mind that. I would be absolutely fine with that. In fact, as I said before, that would be perfect. but giving them a filler spotlight, I would absolutely dislike that, and I hope that doesn't happen. The pandemic restrictions have forced us to tell stories in an even more streamlined way. Mostly we cannot have a scene with a whole bunch of people in them. You just can't have 8 people. Are there 8 or 9 series regulars, right? 9, 10 in a scene in the cortex anymore, because it's not safe. That leads us to stories where there's 4 people in the cortex on one story, like Barry, Iris, and maybe Caitlin and Allegra, and then here downtown or in the lounge or at the left house, maybe it's Joe, Cecile, Chester, and someone else. Just lent itself that way, because we just have to keep people safe first, and that's not going to change for quite a while. Now, we were already expecting this going into season 7, and it shouldn't come as a shocker at all. And personally, I think this is for the better, because Team Flash is huge right now, and having every single series regular being in the cortex of Star Labs, that wouldn't be pretty cool to see, if I have to be honest. So I really like how they're minimizing it, so like, you know, a certain amount of characters go to one area and then like the rest go to another. I really like that. So for example, like having Iris and the Central City citizen people doing their own thing, but then we'll have, like, you know, Barry and the people who are meant to be in Team Flash in the cortex doing Flash business, and in the lounge we could have, like, you know, some of them chilling. That would be very nice to see. Now finally, the last question. Obviously this show asks a lot of Tom Cavanagh already, and now we're getting back to the Reverse Flash. And Eric Wallace replies, with Tom, you can really write almost anything for him, and no, he's going to knock it out of the park. That's the most interesting thing about working with such a great cast. I can say the same thing about the whole cast. Don't mean to minimize anybody, but we're talking about Tom. That guy, no matter what we ask him to do, is not only up for it, but takes it to a whole new level that is so organic and fresh that it almost makes us and the fans think there's nothing this guy can't do. So it's like, let's continue to give him new, wilder things. Wait till you see this year. So yeah, this is very interesting as well, and although you could take this statement related to whether or not we will see, like, you know, a new version of Wells appear soon, you would obviously expect that. There should definitely be another version of Wells soon, because let's be honest, Tom Cavanagh isn't going anywhere. He is still in Vancouver and he's filming. So in whatever shape or form they do it, we will be seeing a version of Wells, or just, you know, Tom Cavanagh as another character, if you will. But this question was Reverse Flash centered, so you could take this statement in regards to him talking about the plans that he had for the Reverse Flash, because we know that we were supposed to originally have a Reverse Flash cliffhanger for the end of season 6, which is now season 7 episode 3. So it will be interesting to see what they have planned for this character. Obviously that Reverse Flash cliffhanger that they have planned could be scrapped. They could either take it and put it at another episode, like the mid-season finale for example, mainly because having a cliffhanger related to the Reverse Flash during the 3rd episode of the show, it would just be so random. So I'm very interested to see what they have planned for Reverse Flash. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Tell me in the comment section down below what you guys think about all of this. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.